Hi guys, in this video we want to go over a little bit of how to use the graphing calculator. So whether you have a graphing calculator or one of the apps on your phone, we need to be able to use that for graphing and doing some other fun things. So we're going to learn how to graph, we're going to learn how to trace or find function values, we're going to learn about the zooming in and out, we're going to learn how to change the window size, and we're going to learn how to use the table. All right, the reason why I'm going over these is because in the next presentation, when we go over limits, you're going to have to be able to do all of these things. All right, so the calculators that we're going to go over how to use are the TI calculators. So we got the TI-84 Plus down here, the TI-84 Plus CE or the TI-84 Plus C Silver Edition, or any of the colored editions will work the same way. And the TI-83 Plus will also work the same way, but it looks a little different. It's a little more aerodynamic if you throw it. All right. The other things, if you have a Chromebook, there should be a Chromebook app installed for a TI-84 that you can use that will look like what I'm going to use here. If you have an Android, you can download the Wabbit Emu app. It'll look something like this. It looks just like the calculator over here, and it has all the same functions. If you have an iPhone, you can use the Graph and Calc app. It's free. It's the TI-83 Plus, so it looks similar to this one right here. And it does all the same things. Right, you can also get the Wabbit Emu for iPhone if you want, but you have to pay like $5 for it to work. All right, you can also use Desmos for most of the stuff that we're going to do in this class. If you're in AP Statistics, Desmos isn't going to work for you. But for calculus, most of the stuff we're doing is graphing related, and Desmos can do pretty much all those things. And it is also free. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is go over where some important buttons are here. So first of all, we've got our on button down here at the bottom, our little green arrow. All right, what we're going to be working with is graphing, and all the graphing buttons are right up here at the top. So we've got Y equals, window, zoom, trace, graph. All right, so if we want to graph something, we go to Y equals and we press that, and then we type in our function. All right, now when we type in our function, if we have a fraction like we do here, we got to make sure the whole top is in parentheses and the whole bottom is in parentheses. Right. And the way we do exponents is, well, we would type the x, and x is this guy right here. See how it starts with x? That's basically our variable button. And then we push this little button here. It's called the caret. It's right above the division sign, but it will raise you to an exponent. But once you get raised to an exponent, and we've typed the exponent in, we got to get out of the exponent, so we have to arrow over here. All right, so let me see if I can pull up a calculator here and we can do this together. So here's my calculator. So I'm going to go to Y equals. I want to type in x cubed minus 8, but to do that I have to put it in parentheses. So x raised to the third. And some of yours will write it small like this. Some of yours will write it with the little caret symbol and then the 3. If you have the caret symbol and the 3, you don't have to arrow over. But if you're in the exponent like this, you got to arrow over. And then we've got minus 8, and that's the whole top. So we close those parentheses. Fraction means divided by. And we've got more parentheses for the bottom, x minus 2. All right, so there we go. We've typed it in after pressing Y equals. And now we're going to go ahead and just press graph. All right, it's the top right button over here, and let's see what it looks like. Sometimes takes a minute, and it looks like a parabola. Okay, so there's our graph, and that's how we graph things. All right, mine's in blue, yours might be in a different color, or it might be just black and white, depending on what you have for a calculator. All right, next up. So we're going to go over what these 3 buttons here in the middle do. So we've got window, zoom, and trace. Let me bring back my live calculator. All right, so there's my live calculator. And let's check out trace. So if we press trace, a cursor pops up, and we've got this point, x equals 0, y equals 4. All right, and it says at the top what equation we're in. It's the equation we wrote down. If you had multiple equations, there could be multiple curves. All right, if we arrow over, that cursor moves along the equation and tells us points. Now the points aren't always so helpful because the numbers aren't really so nice. All right, but we could just type in an x value and say, well, what happens at -1. See how it says x equals -1, and we just press enter. Oh, well, there's the point at -1. It's at 3. Right? And we can do that wherever we want. We can go back to 0 if we want. 0. Oh, there's a point. 0.5. There's another point. 5.25. Alright, so that's very useful if we just need one function value. So we just press trace, and then we just type in whatever number we want the value of. Alright, another thing we can do on our calculator is zoom. So we can only see a little bit of this graph. Let's see what happens if we press zoom. So we get this other menu, we can make a box, we can zoom in, we can zoom out, we can zoom so all of our points are nice decimals, we can make it into a square. Alright, we can do our standard zoom, which is very useful, zoom 6. We can do, for if we're using a trig function, zoom trig, and if you're in statistics, number 9, zoom stat is what you're going to be using an awful lot. Zoom fit is also helpful. I don't know what some of the other ones down at the bottom are here. I've never used them. But let's just go with number 3, zoom out. So press enter or press 3, and then it's going to ask you where do you want to zoom out from. So I'm going to take my cursor and I'm going to move it up a little bit because it looks like the graph is up here. It doesn't really matter where. And now I'm just going to press enter. And now it's zoomed out. And then it's going to have to graph it again. There's our graph. It's still our parabola. We can do that as many times as we want. We can just press enter again. Notice we're now losing the tick marks on our axes because our graph is now too big to put the tick marks on there because we've zoomed out so far. Alright, so maybe you want to zoom back in. So zoom and then number 2, or just press enter. And then we want to pick the spot to zoom in from. I'm going to keep the same spot that we were at before. So there's zooming in once. And it's still thinking. There we go. Alright, yeah, if you press enter too soon when it's still thinking, it actually pauses it. It works like the pause button on your gaming systems. So there's zooming in again. That's about what we started at. Oh, we zoomed in one more time. We might have zoomed in too far. I can't really see things now. Alright, so if we ever need to go right back to normal, we press zoom and then just number 6. Zoom standard, zoom 6. That's probably the most useful thing. When we're in class, that's the thing I have to do the most when people ask for help on their calculators. Their zoom is messed up or their window is messed up, and I just go over their calculators and press zoom and number 6, and it brings it right back to normal. Alright, instead of just trying to zoom in or zoom out, we can also change the window however we want. So right now, our x-min is going from -10 to +10, and our scale is 1. Those little tick marks represent 1. Our y-min is -10 to +10, and our scale is also 1. Right? Generally don't play with the other stuff down here. We don't use much of that. But let's change it. So it wasn't very wide, our graph, so let's maybe go from -5 to +5 instead of 10 to 10. And those don't have to be the same number. Maybe you could go, like, you go to 6. It doesn't have to be the same. Our y-min, it didn't go below the axis, so maybe we'll start at the axis and we'll go up a little higher, maybe to 15. And let's maybe count by 3s or just something different. Press graph. And now it's going to draw our curve. Alright, we're still going by 1s across the x-axis. We're now counting by 3, so 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Yep, we're going up to 15. Huh, looks like there's a hole in the graph. Wonder what's going on there. That happens right at 2, doesn't it? Let's press trace. And let's type in 2 here and see what happens. Huh, there's no y value. Interesting. All right, what happens there is that's a hole. Right? And we're going to take a look at what actually happens at holes in our next presentation on limits. So we have a hole right there. All right, but for now, we're just going over how to use the calculator. All right, so next up, the other thing we've got to learn before we tackle limits here is the table. How to use the table. So if you notice in blue, it says table up here, and it says table set over here. Well, if we want to use anything in blue on the calculator, we have to press second first. That gets us to the blue keys. If we want the green things up here, like the letters, we press alpha first. And if we ever get stuck in something, very useful, see how it says quit? We press second, and then we press mode here, and that will quit from whatever we're in and get us back to the home screen most of the time. All right, so let's bring back my calculator, and let's work on our table. So let's just press second graph to see what our table is looking at right now. Alright, that's what mine is. Maybe yours is something different. Who knows? But let's make them the same. So let's go to second window to do table set. Alright, and the first thing we want to do is start somewhere. So it says table start. Where does our table want to start from? Let's just start at 1. And then what do we want to count by? Well, let's just count by ones here. Alright, so now we've updated that. Let's go back into the table. So second graph. And here we go. We've got 1, 7, 2, we've got an error. That's our whole. Then 3, 4, and so on. If you notice, there's other columns here. So if you had other functions typed in for y2, y3, and y4, back to y equals, like we could type in other stuff here, like, I don't know, 2x minus 3. There's another. So now if we go back to our table, now there's a second curve there, and it's got all of its points as well. All right, let's change our table step. So let's go to second window, and let's change this to maybe 0.1. And go back to table. There we go. Alright, so now you can see it's counting up. It's getting towards 2. We can also arrow up and down if we want to keep going. So if you notice, like near 2 here, on one side we've got 11. The other side we've got 12, so it's probably somewhere between 11.4 and 12.6. We can do better than 0.1 though. All right? And I don't want to see this anymore, y2. We're not going to use that. So what I can do is either I can go here and clear what's in here, or maybe I'm saving that for later. I can just highlight the equal sign and press enter, and it should hide it now. So now if I go back to the table, that guy's hidden. He's gone. All right, so table set. Let's change this to 0.01, and now that I'm counting by something really small, I want to be closer to 2, so like maybe 1.9, something really close to 2. And now let's go to table and see what happens. Alright, so we arrow down a little bit. 11.94 on one side, 12.06 on the other side. Looks like it's just going to 12. Alright, but let's try again one more time. Table set. Instead of 0.01, let's do 0.001. Actually, let's do another 0. Put some more zeros in there. And let's start at 1.999. If you notice, this switched notation. This changed to 1e negative 4. That's scientific notation. That means 1 times 10 to the negative 4th. Alright, so it's the same number we typed in. It's just writing it in a different way. So go back to our table. So if we look on the one side here, we've got 11.99, and on the other side 12.01. So it looks like it's pretty clear that at 2 we are going to the value 12. It looks pretty close to 12 there. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing in the next section. We do limits. We're going to be changing our table like this, like we just did here, to get those answers. All right, so those are a few of the functions of your graphing calculator. So now you know how to graph. You can trace or find y values from x values. You can zoom in and out. You can zoom back to normal by zoom 6. We went over how to change the window, and we went over how to use the table and the table set. So next class period we will go over limits.